The old Carter house stood alone at the end of Maple Street, its weathered facade a testament to decades of neglect. Paint peeled from the wooden siding like dead skin, and thick vines crept up the walls, strangling what remained of its former grandeur. Sarah Mitchell had inherited the property from her grandmother, a woman she'd never met. The lawyer's letter arrived 3 weeks ago, and now here she stood, key trembling in her hand as she faced the imposing front door. The interior was exactly what you'd expect from a house that had been abandoned for 20 years. Dust coated every surface, dancing in the weak beams of sunlight that managed to penetrate the grimy windows. The air felt thick, stagnant, as if time itself had congealed within these walls. Soft footsteps on wooden floors.
Just a quick walkthrough, then I'll call the real estate agent.
The living room was a museum of decay sheet-covered furniture, loomed like distant mountains in the gloom. Family portraits hung crooked on the walls, their subjects' eyes seeming to follow her every move. Clock ticking in the background. That's when she noticed something odd.
Hello? Is someone there?
The response was a soft giggle, high-pitched and childlike, echoing from somewhere above. Child's laughter fades. Sarah's rational mind screamed at her to leave, to run back to her car and never return. But something else, something deeper and more primal, drew her toward the staircase. Each step groaned beneath her feet as she ascended. The temperature seemed to drop with every step until she could see her breath forming clouds in front of her face. Wind chimes in the distance. The upstairs hallway stretched before her, a gauntlet of closed doors on either side.
Is someone there?
The response was a soft giggle, high-pitched and childlike, echoing from somewhere above. Child's laughter fades. Sarah's rational mind screamed at her to leave, to run back to her car and never return. But something else, something deeper and more primal, drew her toward the staircase. Each step groaned beneath her feet as she ascended. The temperature seemed to drop with every step until she could see her breath forming clouds in front of her face. Wind chimes in the distance. At the far end, one door stood slightly ajar.
Hello?
The humming came from the last room, a haunting melody that Sarah somehow recognized but couldn't place. The room was a nursery, frozen in time. A rocking chair swayed gently in the corner, though there was no breeze. Toys lay scattered across the floor as if a child had just been playing moments ago. On the wall hung a familiar portrait, one she'd seen downstairs. But here, the subject's face was different. Instead of the stern Victorian woman she'd observed earlier, the canvas showed something grotesque, features twisted and distorted, mouth stretched into an impossible grin. Glass breaking in the distance. The room plunged into darkness, save for a sliver of light beneath the door. And in that dim illumination, she saw them, tiny footprints appearing in the dust, one after another, walking toward her.
Shh. Who's there? What do you want?
We've been waiting for you,
Sarah.
The voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. The temperature plummeted further, and Sarah's breath came in ragged gasps. The whispers multiplied, becoming a chorus of voices, some children, some adults, all speaking at once in words she couldn't quite make out. The walls began to vibrate with an otherworldly energy. The scratching sound grew louder, and Sarah watched in horror as words began appearing in the dust on the mirror. "Welcome home, granddaughter." Sarah reached for the doorknob, but it wouldn't turn. The rocking chair's movement became more violent, the creaking building to a fevered pitch. The toys began to move on their own, spinning and floating in the air around her. The child's laughter grew louder, more maniacal. "Your grandmother told us you'd come," the voices whispered. "She's been keeping us company all these years, waiting for you to join our family." The portrait on the wall began to bleed, dark liquid running down the wallpaper. Sarah screamed, but the sound was lost in the cacophony of voices and laughter. Screaming fades into silence. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The toys dropped to the floor, the rocking chair stilled, the room fell silent. In the mirror, Sarah saw her reflection, but it wasn't alone. Behind her stood dozens of figures, transparent but visible, all wearing the same twisted grin as the portrait.
Welcome home, Sarah. We're going to have so much fun together.
The door slowly swung open, revealing not the hallway she'd come through, but a vast darkness that seemed to go on forever. Sarah felt hands, cold, incorporeal hands, grabbing at her clothes, her hair, her skin. As they pulled her backward into the darkness, the last thing she saw was her own reflection, her face already beginning to twist into that familiar, horrible grin. They say the Carter house is still standing at the end of Maple Street. Sometimes, people passing by claim they can hear children laughing or see figures in the windows. And on quiet nights, if you listen carefully, you might hear a familiar lullaby drifting on the wind, a song of welcome for the next member of the family.